Alright, welcome. So what we're going to be doing today is a full radiator and reservoir upgrade on my water cooling system. About 2 years ago I put it in, and somewhere in the meantime I managed to break the seam around one of the fittings on the radiator, causing a leak. I was able to repair it, or so I thought, using JB Weld waterproof. It's the kind of stuff they'll use to repair small holes in boats and things. It works whether the surface is wet or dry, it does not matter. It works with high temperature and high pressure. So shouldn't have had a problem, but ended up seeing a leak. So we're going to be installing a new radiator up top. We're going to reroute the tubing. We're going to flush it, of course, and we're using a new reservoir because this radiator does not have a built-in reservoir, which means it should work a lot better than the built-in. Honestly, it never held enough water, and the water seemed to not want to flow. Starting up the computer, the pump would make noise, but the water wouldn't go anywhere. So here's to hoping this all fixes that. Otherwise, it's a new pump and then a new water block, and that's another almost $200 in upgrades again. So what you can see right now, we've got our reservoir installed. I did this a couple days ago to make sure it would fit, and it involved a little bit of MacGyvering. Thankfully I have a lot of different screws and things to make it hold. So this is where it's going to be mounted. I was hoping to mount it a little further out and a little further down, but you know what, it's going to work, and it's not in the way, although it looks like it might be. It works just fine. If I turn it on, it glows this beautiful blue. Once the water's in it, it's going to be awesome, and it's going to hold a lot more coolant water than my old system. Up top we've got our radiator. This is an old 240 by SwiftTech. It's running push-pull. I also have the included SwiftTech mount, CPU block mount and pump. And then I went years ago and bought an EK water block for my 290X reference. This is from their original setup. If it's changed, I don't know. But, so I have that with the backplate. Let me say this, when it comes to water cooling, backplates are a godsend. I can't tell you how many times I've seen little drips of water when I was doing here, little maintenance on the backplate. That just saved me hundreds of dollars for not frying that card. Not to mention it kind of keeps the dust away and everything, which I have a bunch of and I gotta clean up. So right, yeah, we're going to be running from the pump to the new radiator, from the new radiator to the water block, from the water block to the reservoir, and then from the reservoir we're going to be running to the pump. And that should provide the ultimate cooling, because both the 290X and my overclocked 4770 run kinda hot. And by kind of, I mean a lot hot. Alright, so I'm going to get started. I already did a little prep work besides putting in the radiator. I mounted the fans on the new Alpha Cool that I'm installing. This is an Alpha Cool 420mm radiator, which is a 3x140. Been reading online, very good radiator. This one is the Nexus XT45, so it's a 45mm radiator. The current one I have in there, I believe, is about a 30 or so. So it's a little bit thicker. It's a lot bigger, a lot more surface area, so a lot more cooling potential. The fans I'm using, I use Cougar brand always. I love Cougar's fans. They are just fantastic. Some of the best airflow that I've been able to find out there. These are the blue LED 140s. They are not PWM, which means they only run at one static speed. I believe that's about 1,000 RPMs. But at 1,000 RPMs, you're pushing 73 cubic feet per minute, which is a lot of airflow, and at 18 decibels. They're really quiet. They push a lot of air. They've got a high static pressure, and they're quiet. You can't ask for more in fans. I bought these years ago. I got them on sale. Definitely look into that because I know that they can be pricey. The ones on the 240 are PWM. They can be anywhere from, I believe, 800 to 1,600 revolutions per minute. and they can push a varying amount of air and noise. I know when they're fully spinning, they're very loud. Not that you can hear it in my room because of the air conditioner, but if it were silent in here and those things were going full tilt, it would be very loud. So I've already pre-installed the fans on the push side. The pull side is going to be installed after I get up here and unmount everything, and that's what's going to hold it together like a little sandwich. The radiator is too thick to install in the cavity in the top, so like this one, it's just going to hang down, and it should have just a little bit of clearance above my RAM here, which is all I really need. Once everything's drained, flushed, cleaned out, I'm going to kind of soft mount, and we're going to see how we're going to run the tubing and what fittings I need to maybe move or change to figure out how I'm going to get the flow exactly the way I want it. So let's get started. Where is that bucket I bought? Bring it in here. There we go. Alright, so I got this wonderful little bucket from Michael's. I'm going to put that underneath. We're going to drain it from the graphics card block. It's right now the lowest point in the system, which is the best place to do your draining from. So we're going to drain it from there. I have a bunch of distilled water that I'm also going to pour in to help flush it. And wherever I put my tubing, they gave me a treatment. Now they recommend running it for 12 hours, but that would have required me to do all of the work yesterday or this morning. Seeing as how I'm going to have a bit of help a little later on, that's not going to happen. But we are going to run it for a while. Primo Chill tubing, they gave me a little Primo Chill Sys Prep, they call it. And we're going to run that through there, help clean some stuff out while I'm dismantling everything. And then we'll probably run it again when the new stuff's in there, just to give it a quick little cleanse before... Make sure this is still running. Quick little cleanse before we actually add our fluid and our treatments. I use Feather Base, and this basically will help eliminate corrosion, which is kind of what you want. You don't want mixed metals causing things to get holes and just eat away at it. It's impossible to 100% avoid. However, with the right setup, you can limit it to almost no corrosion or very, very low corrosion, which is what I've done by selecting specific things. I try to avoid nickel-plated wherever possible. It can just cause problems with various types of copper. Not as much as aluminum. Don't ever use anything in your system that uses aluminum. You will get corrosion. It will happen, it will eat through it very fast, and you will be very upset when it ruins everything. So everything in here is either brass or copper, or in the case of the reservoir now, glass. Unfortunately, the new fittings that I ordered for the reservoir are nickel-plated. So it's not going to be the greatest thing, but I do have corrosion inhibitor, and it's still not nearly that bad. I just prefer to avoid nickel. Some people swear by it. I've seen some water blocks that are nickel-plated and they cool better than the copper, the pure copper. So I think a lot of it is how do you do it and what do you prefer. I prefer that. And without further ado, we're going to get started. The first thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to unplug this graphics card. That's right, I'm running 290Xs in Crossfire. I'm just going to feed them right through this little cabling point just to keep the cable connectors out of the way. The other thing, and I may have to remove the reservoirs, we're going to have to unscrew it. However, it uses thumb screws, so assuming I can get my fingers in there, we can get these off. Maybe we can't. was thinking of the wrong ones anyway. So, I'm trying not to unscrew them all the way. Because they're going to be a pain in the butt to get back on. Okay. There is a latch to release your PCI. However, yeah, I'm going to have to unscrew them all the way. Oh, sad face. Truth be told, thus far I've actually been underwhelmed by the Crossfire performance. I don't know if it's just me, if I've done something wrong, but I actually felt like I got better performance out of a single card than I did with the double. Alright. Ooh. Okay then. So we're actually going to cover that yet. Because the reservoir is in the way. Whew. Let me turn the air to a much colder temperature. Alright. This is a Fantex Enthu Primo case, and it is a very large super tower. I bought it actually specifically with the idea of running this water cooling setup. My original case was the Cooler Master Half X. I kind of need those screws. Cooler Master Half X. It's basically the giant pizza oven of computer cases, and it works phenomenally, but it's very limited on what you can install. For example, I barely was able to push pull this 240 that I have in here with no problems. But on the Half X, it just didn't really want to fit. Specifically, it didn't want to fit with the reference 290X. Once the water card went on, it was a much better fit, but still very, very tight. It's just not designed for a large card and a push-pull water cool. You can run standard push or pull and have zero trouble whatsoever. But push-pull, just not really in the cards for that particular case. The cord you see is the LED. We're just going to leave it for right now because we don't need to fully unmount that. Now we can get to our 290X. We're going to set that aside. As you can see, it still has the stickers on it. I don't really care. You never see them. So, I mean, is it a big deal? I don't think so. Alright. So we are going to move the reservoir off to the side. Grab my bucket. And I'm going to grab this towel here. The towel is going to get jammed right here. And that's where all my electrical components are. Everything else is kind of unimportant. It's just the case I can clean it up with some paper towels and there will be no harm to anything. My desk might just be a little wet for a little bit. But I don't really care about that. So just to make things a little easier, I'll take this wonderful bag I just got at Home Depot. I'm going to lay it underneath so that there's no chance any of the spill gets far. Alright. So now we've got that done. One more thing we're going to do. We're going to unplug our 24-pin motherboard connector. The reason is later we're going to need to turn on the pump, but for the time being we don't want to turn it on with the computer turning on. We just want to be able to trigger the pump, not the whole boot up. So we're pulling that out completely. Now what's going to end up happening is when I turn it back on, I'm going to... Let's see if I can do this on camera or not. Okay. We're going to take a paper clip. This is the ye old paper clip trick. And this one luckily has color-coded wires. We're going to find the green wire, and one end of the paper clip goes in the green, and the other end goes in one of the black wires. The black is the ground, the green. So, like so, you can buy little adapters that do it. The paper clip, if you have one, is free. Be careful, don't electrocute yourself. So, I'm going to take it out for now. I'm going to be doing that, and that way when I hit the button on the case, everything turns on that I need to turn on. Specifically, everything but the computer part itself. So fans should run, the pump will run, everything will basically let me know, hey, this is in fact working and you've done it right. It'll also help me check for leaks. I'm going to be, visually inspecting every little spot where a tube's installed to make sure nothing's dripping or nothing's going to drip, to make sure that all the tube is in there properly and it's tightened. Don't want it dripping when we're playing, Overwatch or something. Alright, so we've got all that done. What I'm going to do now, amongst 1,000 other things I have to do, I'm going to open up my fill port that I created that never worked properly. And then I'm going to open up one of these. Let me think, which way does it run? This is my inlet, and this is my outlet. So what I want to do, this is where it's going to get messy. I already know that. So I want to open this up. And let it drain. See what I mean about messy? By the way, this stuff gets toxic, so you don't want to be putting your hands anywhere near your mouth. I'm going to get some paper towels. I need to keep my hands dry so that I can touch things and not worry. Yes, it's toxic. The key component of the Phasar base that I use is ethylene glycol, and that is the base component of antifreeze. It helps to change the properties of water, inhibit corrosion. Basically, it can carry a little bit more heat, or actually, a little less heat than true pure water, but it's less likely to also pick up any mineral elements that cause corrosion. Alright, so it's technically been drained, but I can pretty much guarantee you that there is water in a lot of these different spots. What I'm going to start doing, my little tiny funnel works phenomenally for what we're doing. I'm going to fill a cup with water, not too much because we don't want to spill. And I've already got my paper clip installed. What I'm going to do, I'm going to trigger it. Wipe up a little spill back here. I don't know how I got all the way back here. Alright, so we've got power. supposed to. Except that I'm an idiot and did it in the wrong spot. Luckily it's 2 black wires, no harm done. Alright. So, as you can see, it's now running. You can see a few more drops coming. Our wonderful blue reservoir. What we're going to do, since the pump is running now, we're going to start funneling some water into the system. See? Isn't that wonderful? So right now we are draining. If I had a flashlight, I'd be able to show you. And that's the sound you don't want. That's the sound of a dry pump. So we're going to now find it, cut off, we're going to, because of the splashing, we're going to cover this a little more. There is far too much water being just splashed everywhere right now. Alright. So we flushed it a little bit. But I think I see more water. And that's not good. So, I'm going to open up the other port and seal the first one. If I remember what I did with my tools. And we're going to rinse and repeat. So, we're sealing. Yes. Sometimes a bit of an oaf. A bumbling oaf. Okay, so we're sealing this one up. Paper towel. And we're going to dry our hands. We're going to dry this whole thing right here. Check. Make sure we're all good. Yeah. Good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to other one. Do it one more time. One more time. A little bit of water in there. Fortunately, my phone is my flashlight, and since you are being streamed to using it, I'm kind of stuck. Alright, so a little more distilled. I feel like I should go over that. A lot of people are scared about water cooling, first time especially, or if you've never done it, you think, oh, water, electronics, they don't mix, they fry. Truth is, good old distilled water, and distilled, not anything else, is mostly non-conductive. I say mostly because you never know what it's picked up as far as properties go. But true pure water, that was quick. True pure water does not conduct electricity. Doesn't. That's just not how it works. That sounds horrible. But we kinda need to do it. Yeah, that is awful. That is absolutely awful. Alright, so the water's mostly stopped. Oh, this is really bad. It's worse in person than it is for you. More importantly, it's bad for the pump, which is where we're cutting it off. Alright. So, we flushed. Most of the tubing is going to get thrown out. It's too specifically sized for this setup. So, I'm going to reopen this one because there's no point in having them closed right now. So what I'm going to start doing is dismantling the whole setup. Starting with the tubes. We're going to start with this one. So these are compression fittings. They screw right off. Ta-da. And all you do is just shift the tube like so. We're going to leave it, pull the sleeve off, set it aside. We're just going to leave it so that if there's anything in there that shouldn't be, but if there is, it'll drain. I'm going to do it to this next tube next. What I was saying about water. So pure water doesn't conduct electricity. The problem is, if you don't use distilled water, or like tap water, or even mineral or spirit, whatever you want to call it, spring water, they're all really bad. And the reason is, in order to try and make you healthier or taste better, a lot of companies with spring and mineral water add things to the water. They'll add, a little magnesium, maybe some iron, salts, all kinds of things. And those are really absolutely awful. They are so bad for your system. That's where you get a lot of corrosion. That's where you get things calcifying. You get a lot of problems because of that. You have to use distilled water. It's pure. It's going to run right through. There shouldn't be anything in it that's going to cause growth, a little algae. Not to say things can't happen. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a little bit of something on there. That could just as easily be from the copper in maybe the base plate or the card there. The point is, distilled water always. Alright. So, we've got our tubes. They're kind of draining a little bit. Is there something I can do? That'll help prop it forward. Next one I'm going to do is going to be this one. One on the pump. I might have to still take this card out later when we're doing new fittings. Because I may have to adjust where things are going. I don't know that this setup is going to work still. Alright, so this is still draining. We're not going to touch that yet. This one worries me a little bit more though. So what we're going to do, we're going to shift this. We're past our drip spill point there. I'm going to shift this here. I'm actually going to hold it while I undo the sleeve. That's probably the sleeve. Yeah, that's the collar that I put there to help it drain, but it's just not working. So, out of the way. Anyway, we're going to hold this here. Any fluid that drains, instead of going where we don't want it to, is going to go on our towel. I'm going to pull the tube off, collar. For a few years these tubes are a little warped. And I'm going to bend it just to make sure that there's no water. Alright, so that one's safe. I'm going to completely remove it from the pump. Again, another piece. You might notice about this one, it started to kink. that is my fault. It's how I installed it. You don't want that to happen. You want as round a tube as you can get. Now there's going to be a little kink. I mean, you're bending something. But there's a bit much. Monitor light's flashing, it's bothering me. So, in the new setup, I'm going to avoid that as much as I humanly can. I really don't want that to happen this time. Alright, so this thing is still draining again. I'm going to take my towel, put it up here, so that any drainage happens on the towel, not on the components. This one was not as tight as I would have liked. The truth is, with these fittings, you can't always get the tightest of tight, and you may not necessarily want to. So now we're going to leave this here for right now. Alright, all of our tubes are out, and for the most part it looks like it's pretty dry. So, while we're letting all that kind of dry and drain, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure there's nothing plugged in. So I'm going to go and unplug all 4 of these fans. And that way, I can start taking it apart. So, let's make sure we find the right ones. Yep. All 4 of those fans are installed on a fan controller. Now, unfortunately, the fan controller doesn't really work very well. Going forward, since the new fans, like the blue one there, don't have PWM, I don't actually need to control them. They just run. They will always run at 1,000 RPM. They'll never change. They'll never go less. They'll never go more. If I use adapters, I can up the voltage and I could get more out of them. I don't feel the need to do so. 1,000 RPMs and 73 cubic feet per minute of airflow is more than enough. And it could be overkill, but better more than less. Better a little too much than not enough. So I'm going to reattach the cap to the snorkel, as I call it, the little fill port I have, so that I can get it out of the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking this apart. Pull the fans through. Thankfully they're not dropping in the bucket. That would be pretty awful. Notice I'm holding, and that is because as soon as all of these are out, as soon as these screws come out, it's going to fall. There's nothing else holding it. It's not sitting on anything, keeping it from falling through. It is hanging securely on top of the computer. You don't want that to happen, by the way. If your screwdriver slips, you stab your radiator, you can puncture one of the channels the water flows through, or just bang up a bunch of the fins. That's just not what you want to have happen. They're pretty delicate. They're basically just copper foil. Some of them are painted black to... I have no idea what they painted black. Make it look nice, I guess. The housings I can understand, but the fins themselves, there's no point. It doesn't add much performance. Mostly, it just makes it uniform. We'll have to do some research. I don't recall if copper fins are the best, but my wager would be yes, because the thermal conductivity, that is how much heat copper absorbs and expels, is really high. It's not the highest you'll find, but it's pretty darn high. Alright, so here comes the old radiator. since it's not 100% drained, we're going to set it aside, put it upside down. Other than some bent fins here and there, still in pretty good condition. I could probably let someone use this once I figure out how to stop the leak. Given enough time, who knows, maybe I'll reuse it. These fans are going to come out. They are no longer needed. These are 120 millimeter Cougars. They, just like the big ones, they're awesome. I highly recommend Cougar fans to pretty much everyone. I know there's some brands out there people swear by, like Noctua. They claim, oh, it's the very best. And you know what? The numbers don't lie. They tend to have some of the better cooling numbers. Problem for me is they are very loud. I want fans that I have control over, or that I am very confident are not going to be loud. And for me, that's Cougar. Alright, so dry off a little bit, make sure there's no drips here and there. I'll probably go back with paper towel because the towel itself is going to get wet. And once cotton is wet, it does not absorb it much. Alright, so all that is dry. This is all dry. This is what needs to be dry now. Lest we have incidences. So I'm drying it off just to make sure we're okay. By the time we start getting to the point where everything else is, I'm gonna do, you know, a good look for any water. But most of it that has splashed maybe will be gone by then. So we're gonna move our bucket full of water because we don't need it. At least not right now. Looking at the water, it's a little hazy, a little cloudy. Most of that's the treatment that's in there. The Phasar kind of gives it a slightly cloudier look. I'm okay with that. I don't really care if it's going to be a little gross. We've probably filled up a third, maybe a quarter of the bucket. Half of that, I would say, probably more than half of that, is me doing that flush, rinsing it out. Alright, so now what we're going to do is start taking the fittings off of the card and the pump, and then what I'll do in a minute is take the fittings off of the old radiator because I do actually need those. So let me find my different sets of pliers. Can't go wrong having two adjustable wrenches, and I also have adjustable channel lock. I think it's a channel lock. That's what someone told me. So we're gonna do a little pretty cleanup here so that we're not leaving a wet mess on the entire desk. Alright. So, where do we want to start? I'm going to start with this bad boy here. Alright. So, that is a 45-degree fitting with a 3/4 diameter, 1/2-inch inner diameter tube compression fitting. I may never get them apart because of how I did them. Oh, there we go. Okay. And what I'm doing each time is I'm inspecting them to make sure there's no damage. They look good. The O-rings are good. So we set them aside. The adapters may come in handy later. but fittings are the important thing here. We're going to see if this will turn by hand or if I need to grab the wrench. This is why I have two, partly, because I want to be able to have two different sizes ready to go, because the fitting uses a different wrench size than the adapters. And yet again, you notice I'm holding things. I don't want to bend the PCB of the graphics card. That would be pretty horrible. Alright, so this graphics card is now ready for whatever changes I'm going to have to make. Now, one thing I'm noticing right now about the pump, these two actually do not have adapters on them. So what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to leave them alone. And I'm doing that because I still don't know where I'm going to do all the piping. I don't know if it's going to come out the bottom on here at any point. I don't know. So, until I know that, I'm going to leave them alone. That's why also I'm leaving this completely open and not sealing off two of the ports. I still have to figure out where are things going to go. But what I can do in the meantime is I can do a dry fit of the radiator. Let's hope it actually goes in, because I don't know how I'm going to get it in otherwise. Alright, so we're going to move some stuff out of the way. There's a lot of clutter right now. This is an Alpha Cool. Like I said earlier, you can see they don't actually fully paint the fins. They leave them partially copper. They paint just enough where it's like, oh, okay, that looks blackish. And then the rest they leave alone. And I kind of like that. If you're going to do it, don't paint the inner. I feel like that's how you get poor airflow, how you're going to get poor thermal conductivity. I did all my fan cords on the side that's going to be closest to all of the ports. Now I have to figure out how. I'm going to block your view, I'm sorry. I gotta try and get this in here. And it may involve removing my DVD drive. Which I'm hoping I didn't screw in there. Tell at the moment. I'm gonna go with the resounding I did screw it in. It's okay. Return in one moment. I need a screwdriver. The number of people in my house, it's tools just tend to go a little missing. Did I say a little? I mean a lot. Oh, come on. Don't tell me this isn't going to work. Of course it's not. Of course. Let's definitely screw it. Alright. I need to have a different screwdriver for those. Out, try something different. Will you fit? Yes, you will. Will you turn? Come on. Oh my God. What did I do? How did we get to this point? Let's recap. Don't lend people tools. Because that just took a weird screwdriver and a wrench to get unscrewed. Either I don't know my own strength, or I had a better screwdriver when I did this last. Alright. So, I don't need it all the way out. I just unscrewed it, pushed it out of the way. That should give me all the room I need, hopefully, to get it in. Let's rotate. No. Alright. This is the truth of installing anything like this. Trial and error is bound to happen. So now I have to take out all ends, which is okay. It's nice to have them installed because it makes everything easy, but sometimes easy ain't what you get. No, seriously, it's always has to be the hard way. Always has to be the hard way. So I'm going to take these out. AlphaCool was pretty awesome in including these M3 screws. The problem is, they only gave me enough screws, millimeter length. I'm going to pack away and set aside over here. They only gave me enough 30 millimeters to do half the radiator, and I need twice as many. So, being the smart guy I am, I went over to Home Depot and I bought a bunch of different screws because they don't carry M3 screws that I need. Washers. I bought a bunch of different stuff. Some of it might work. AlphaCool did include M3 35 millimeter screws, which are just a little too big. But with the washers, hopefully, we should have no problem. I wanted plastic washers, no reason really, just felt like I was more comfortable having them. They don't have them. I ended up getting, oh, they're hidden now. There they are. I think these are stainless. They could be zinc. It doesn't say. I got number 6 flat washers, and we're going to see if they work, and if not, it may involve a little trickery. But we should be fine. Honestly, yeah, they're not going to come through the head of the screw, so they will work phenomenally. And all we're doing is just, we're going to put them on top here, and that way it takes up some of the space so it doesn't fall through. The other reason I like mounting the fans first, besides the